welcome to the Better Sex Podcast. My name is Deborah Catt, and I am your shameless host. This is the Better Sex Podcast, where we have unfiltered conversations about sex and relationship. This show is about the many different ways that we do and have sex and relationships. It's for people who want to learn the skills and the nuances to have better sex on their terms. I truly believe that a sexier world creates a happier world, and a happier world is a safer world. So if you want to do your part to help create a safer world, please hit subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much. Today, I am so excited to dive into Andre's world. So Andre is an intimacy, sex, and relationship guide, as well as a sacred intimate with 8+ years of experience helping individuals and couples discover their intimate and erotic power. As a multisexual being experienced in consensual non-monogamous dynamics, Andre's unique approach to sexuality, sensuality, and the bond people share make him a thought leader and a knowledgeable practitioner. He's a certified sex and relationship coach through the Somatica Institute, based out of San Francisco, and so much more. I just want to say on a very personal note, what pleasure it is to spend time with him. He has got exquisite attention and just a really lovely person to be spending time with. So, Andre, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Deborah. And wow, what an intro. Just everything, even the way that you talked about sex in the world and making the world a safer place through happiness and finding sexual experiences that really call to each individual. Thank you for all you do and for that lovely intro.
Oh, my pleasure. So I am so curious. I know you've had quite an adventure to get where you are today. So tell me your story. How did you get here?
Yeah. So, how much time do you have? No, my story is quite unique. And while we all have our unique stories, I think my origin to where I'm standing today is very interesting. So, I used to be in the military. I was a Marine Corps officer. So I say that because a lot of people, when they come to me or when I have clients who want to know a little bit more about me, they imagine a different being sitting before them, someone that wasn't in a government militaristic establishment for many years. So through my own self education and my own curiosity around sexual desire and trauma healing, sexual healing. While I was in the military, I really started to come into my own when it came to how sex played a role in my life. And it wasn't just this added fun thing that you do every now and then. It was really steeped in really who I was. Like it was part of who I am. And it kind of catapulted me into the place that I am today after many years of my own self tutelage, as well as you mentioned, being, certified through the Somatica Institute. I'm constantly learning about this world of sexuality, of intimacy, of finding truth in our own power. And it's really just been one hell of a ride. And I can't say enough about how just privileged I am to be able to be here, even speaking with you about these subjects where who knows, even 5, 10 years ago, talks of consensual non-monogamy and men who had emotions was very taboo. So I feel very privileged to be here with you.
Thank you. I love that you started with the military because one of the things that I saw on your website was in your work with men, you talk about the fact that you were in the military and you like to have pedicures and paint your nails, that you are very much steeped in your masculine and you have emotions. It's just like, even as I talk, I get goosebumps because I feel like that is something that so many men don't allow themselves to have.
Mm.
Like, I do a lot of work with men, and the thing that is I'm always touched by is how small the box is for masculinity.
Oh yeah, totally. And I feel it's something that, while still surprising to me in this day and age, as we have more access to information and more people are feeling comfortable talking about emotions, talking about vulnerability, talking about sex, we often, I think, forget that there's a lot of social conditioning that happens with all sexes and those, who are non-binary and who choose to identify in a certain way, that when we're talking about men, we're raised to not feel. We're raised to not cry. We're raised to be the rock, the pillar that never falters, that never fails, no matter how much pain you might be holding in. You hold it in and you suppress and suppress until one day, it's like a powder keg. You just can't hold it in anymore. So I don't feel we talk enough about, same can be said for women and their social upbringing, but when talking about men, I don't believe we talk enough about how much it's just baked into how we're raised. And while it doesn't hold a candle or shouldn't be an excuse to not have men approaching these subjects and looking at their vulnerability. And you mentioned I'm steeped in my masculine. I also dance with my feminine as well. That we need to have more conversations about why and how it's okay for men to be vulnerable and be a feeling being, because until then we're just going to be constantly like finding ways of why we shouldn't.
Mm, thank you for that. As I'm hearing you talk, one of the pieces that I really appreciate about both your story and what I know of you is that you have developed a level of attunement, or for those who are not familiar with that word, being able to connect with somebody where they're at. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that and how you've developed that in your own being.
Yeah, it's a really really great question. I think first it kind of comes from a internal just love and desire and curiosity for people, and I can't take all the credit for that because I was raised in a loving household. While there were challenges, and I'm a product of a divorced family, my parents loved me, they kissed me. Nudity was not something to be ashamed of. We talked about sex at a very early age. So I feel like when I say privilege, I had the privilege of being able to like come into the world in a place held in love and being allowed to really be myself. And that taught me a lot of lessons around how to see my emotions and see my own vulnerability. And that, I think, catapulted me into a place where I really just became this empathic being, whether it was something I was born with or something I developed. But being an empath really allows me the ability to feel one's energy, and not just one person, but many. If I'm in a room, I can feel the energy of multiple beings. And when it comes to boundaries, that's something that I've definitely had to work on heavily, of, not allowing someone else's energy, whether that be positive or more challenging, to affect my own. But that really has given me the ability to really attune to people when I see or hear them going through something, even if it's a beautiful emotion. Like, I feel I take some of that on, and it's really allowed me to be really good at what I do. I think, there's a beautiful exchange that happens when as a practitioner, I can sit with a client and really feel what they're feeling, or be turned on when they're turned on, or feel the sadness that they're feeling. So I feel most people can learn to attune and become better at it. And I believe there's also a part of it that's just part of one's being and just a trait that you're born with.
Hmm. So a trait that you're born with and something you can maybe turn the volume up on.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So before we had a live mic, we were talking a little bit about the movie Good Luck to You, Leo Grand,
Mhm.
which for those of you who have not seen it, I highly recommend it. For those of you who have seen it, yay. Not to give too much of a spoiler about it, but what it's about is it's about a young man, a young, very handsome man, and an older woman. And the older woman hasn't had an orgasm ever in her life, and she's in her 50s, I believe. And
Yeah.
then she hires this young man to essentially help her discover her turn on and her sexuality. And I love that there's so many narratives that kind of turns on its head. One of them being, the idea that of older women going after what they wanted.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I want to also mention that I'm gonna try not to say anything that would give the movie away. So I'm taking a second. Okay, I got it. So it's beyond just not having an orgasm. It's her not really receiving pleasure from her husband in their 30 plus year relationship. So while the fact that she hasn't had an orgasm before is, part of her story, I feel the bigger part of the story is she just has not had the ability to really discover pleasure or feel safe to try to discover that with her husband. And yeah, it's an amazing movie. If you have not seen it, it's on Hulu. So highly recommend either signing up for Hulu just for the movie or finding a friend that has one.
Yeah. So part of what it really inspired the conversation for me is you are one of the few male practitioners that I know that really works with women in this way. And I just wanted to get kind of I don't know if a peek into your world was exactly it, or words of wisdom, or maybe both. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what it's like what are some of the things that specifically female clients come to you, female identified clients come to you for, and how
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
work with that?
So one thing that I found interesting about this movie is I didn't know it existed. The reason I found out about it was I had a previous client, message me to let me know about this movie. And they said, I just saw this movie and I thought of you the entire time. Thank you for what you do. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I did not know that Hulu was putting out movies like this. So, yeah, that's how I found out about the movie. And to answer your question around so I primarily work with women. I also work with couples. I'm open to working with men as well, and when and if that ever becomes an opportunity. But yeah, in the work that I do with women and I guess clients that come to me, it's a wide range, Deborah. It's really wide because we all have a past and we all have things that we want to learn more about or have not had the opportunity to learn about. And when I saw this movie and saw the male character doing similar work to that, what I do, I think it opened up a whole new way of seeing myself and how I hold space. So some clients might come to me who have had traumatic experiences from their past and they want to know and that there is a safe way to be able to experience pleasure in the world. It could be someone who similar to the character in the movie who's never had an orgasm or been able to explore different forms of pleasure because they either have not had a partner or the partner that they had was not willing to provide their partner's pleasure or open to curiosity in their partner's pleasure. And then also individuals who have some shame, whether it comes from religion or upbringing or social just norms, that they have shame around a desire or that they've wanted to like really peek behind the curtain on. And I help to guide them through an experience where they really get to see this thing that they've been very interested in. And I feel, just even talking about this right now, I feel a wave of emotion coming over me because to be trusted in this space with people who might not have ever had that type of trust in their life or felt safe to like explore or ask these questions, to have them come to me and when working with me after we've had a session or multiple sessions and hearing the impact that their life has had because of the work that we did together is, there are no words. It's just it's beyond me. And I say we together because there's nothing that I do as the practitioner, as the sacred intimate, that is the shift that these individuals are experiencing. It's the guidance that I go through with them, and they ultimately are the ones that discover this in their own healing, in their own pleasure, in their own power. So yeah, I feel very, very fortunate to do the work that I do.
So it sounds like when you say that, what you're helping them to create then is there a safe space to be able to explore and to have accurate reflection in a way that they may not have had it in the past, or a reflection from someone who is a more neutral, nuanced experience. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and I like the way you put that. And I feel that there's a big world out there of possibility and safety. You mentioned it in your intro, you mentioned it as you were describing the work. Safety is so important for people to be able to really open themselves up to going into some possibly some uncomfortable, fearful spaces. And when we feel safe, we can actually really open ourselves up and surrender. I use that word often with my clients in this work. And I often hear them say that they just want to like let go and just succumb and surrender and not like have that moment of, oh, this is too much, or I'm not sure I can do this anymore. When we can feel really safe in conversation, in intimate moments out in the world, we can let down some of these walls, some of these guardrails that we've put up to really just allow ourselves to feel everything. And when I say feel everything, I haven't had a session with a client where someone didn't feel some form of tough emotion, whether it be fear or sadness. I think everyone has cried, and I feel like I've cried in almost every experience as well. So yeah, safety is such a huge part of it. So yeah, that's very accurate what you described.
And I think one of the things about coming to, going to a professional is that there is a way in which there is a safety in not necessarily like this may be the first and only time we see each other, so
Hmm.
I can be everything in this time period.
Yeah.
And I don't have to filter because I don't have to worry about what you may think of me when I see you in the morning, if you will,
Yeah, yeah,
or
that's a
what.
very good point.
And I know for myself, as somebody who's definitely been a client as well as, been a provider, that there is something really beautiful about allowing myself to have that.
Yeah.
It's like there's this thing, there's that place where it's like we don't allow ourselves to have. And so it's just a really it's kind of an intense experience when you allow yourself to have the to follow your desire. And
Yeah, intense is a great way of putting it.
and especially if it's something like been a client for sensual massage, and to have somebody's attention on me and my pleasure and not have to give back and know that it's all about me. It's the thing of like being a little selfish and also like just the delight in having that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, as you were just talking about that, I was getting turned on. So there's something really amazing when we go into these intense moments and realize when we remove like the filter of like the world, of all of the social conditioning, all of the access to information that we receive, and trying to filter through the mess of that, which can be loud, it can be noisy. But when we are able to, in these intense moments, realize how much power we have, how much we can actually ask for what we want and receive it, how much we can say, I want all of this pleasure on my body, in my soul, in my being, and not have to worry about you as the other individual receiving some form of like pleasure as a transactional like means. When we feel that power, it's almost as if we're ascending. I've had someone describe it to be the closest that they've felt to like being godlike. And that was a powerful statement for me to hear, because I have my own edges and my own triggers and activation around like religion. But when I heard them say that, and to see them now out in the world doing amazing things, able to like ask for the things they want, dating when they were unsure if they could, feeling in their body when they thought that they had no feeling whatsoever, is just such a extraordinary way of really tapping into ourselves.
I just want to come back to that piece around like, the idea of, so for me, I'm more like, on the one side, hearing godlike is like, ooh, that's sexy. But,
Mhm.
the truth is that there are these really expanded places. And there are, when I think of that, when I hear that, what I'm thinking of is like, how big a container can you hold for this person? It's like I almost have this image of the painting of God and, reaching out his finger. I think it's to Adam, must be to Adam, but like that spark of big possibility. It's like,
Mm,
you know, you kind of hold the container and give the spark, and then the client gets to expand and grow and do what they do.
yeah, I think that you put that beautifully. And um, the huge responsibility that I have in these sessions that I hold are that container, the safety of that container, and being prepared and ready for anything to come up. There's a lot of intake that happens prior to me, either in person or virtually. There's a questionnaire that I have clients fill out, and I do this so that I have a better understanding of where this individual currently is and where they might go. And there's a lot of responsibility in that, in holding that container, because someone might feel that they'll come into an experience and just want to surrender, and they're just going to have the most grand, glorious, like explosive experience. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh, wow, this event that happened in my past that has shaped the way that I view people and is still very traumatic in my life can sometimes come up. And as, like you said, as the professional in this experience, I have to be there prepared for anything that might unfold. So it really is about, I'll keep saying it, the safety of that individual being able to just explode if they want to, and be able to cry, be able to yell, be able to to laugh until their belly hurts. And when they're able to do that, when that container is held in a safe and beautiful way, that's when I'll say again, like they become godlike and now they're able to integrate. I think that's something I want to make sure I call out, which is it's not just about the experience in that moment. It's how do these individuals take what unfolded during this experience and integrate it back into their lives so that they can find ways of revisiting the experience or even recreating it with themselves, with other partners, with the people that they surround themselves with in their community. So a big part of that container is also holding space and guiding them through the integration process afterwards. It's not just, oh, you're in this session with me. All right, we've had this. Good luck to you. It's all right, we've had this session. How can we find ways of you finding the power to recreate this again?
Oh, I love that. I may have misheard earlier because I heard you say that they become creators of their own experience and they get to take that out into their own lives, into their own worlds,
Mhm.
which such a great point and so important that as they integrate that they're, as you said, the value is yes in the expansion, but it's also can you digest it, can you integrate it, can you take it into your daily life. You were talking a little bit about trauma earlier, and I know that you are trauma informed and that trauma is actually part of your story. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit of that.
Yeah, no, I would be happy to. And I say that, and I mean that when I said be happy to. That wasn't always the case. That took many, many years, decades of healing in order to speak about my trauma in a way that I felt empowered and not something that I was hiding from the world. So, yes, I would be happy to. So, yeah, my first sexual experience, in my life as a being was traumatic. I was raped and my power was taken away from me. And I was young. I was in my late teens, early 20s. And there was a big part of me that was mad at the world, the entire world. But I focused a lot of my attention about being mad at my perpetrator and the sexuality or the gender that they were part of, which was women. And through that, I found ways to cope that were not the healthiest. I definitely look back and I have shame around the way that I treated the people that were interested in me and who I was having intimate experiences with. It was me taking my power back. And I look back and I wrote a pretty long post on for social media as well as turned it into a blog where I basically apologized to all of the individuals who I had experiences with if for some reason they felt like the experience was anything less than something where they felt safe. So I believe that while it was a traumatic experience and something that took many years to cope with, I feel I am even better at the work that I do because I came from a place of hurt, of pain, of trauma, and was able to use that as a way to find healing. And I think it's like any practitioner or any profession, you don't want to just have someone holding a space because they've gone to school and they've read about it and here they are sitting across from you like trying to attune or relate with you. It helps when you know that the individual who going to for whatever service that you're seeking has had that experience and been able to see both the light and the dark of it. So that's why being trauma informed is one of the things that I find to be the I think it's something that is a way that I'm able to really be a safe space for individuals who are going into this work with me and who have also experienced forms of trauma, because they know that I've been there in my own capacity. Like I mentioned before, every situation is unique and I never try to take that away from an individual. But the fact that I've had my own really puts me in a place where I can really attune and understand what someone might be going through and how to take them into a space where there's healing moving forward.
Thank you for sharing that. It's not often that you hear men admit to being raped, and it's not often that the perpetrator is female. And I just so appreciate the willingness to be as transparent as you are. And I'm kind of curious about what I understand trauma to be is if you have a loop, it's like it's the place where the loop doesn't quite connect. It's the unfinished part of the loop. And so it seems like hearing you talk, what you're supporting people in, like maybe they had the experience, it was disempowering. And so bringing that loop around so that they have the experience, but it's more within their control, more within their power. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say that that there's elements of what you shared that are, I feel it's really different depending on the individual and what we're exploring together, what we might be going into. So some individuals might want to, and I might take them into the place where the trauma occurred and recreate that. And in that, there's healing when they see now in the experience with me that they can take that control back or have their voice or be able to be powerful once again. And then there's experiences where we don't actually like go to where that trauma occurred, but we will be in a space that is similar to that traumatic experience and showing how there's ways of coping when they're out in the world and having these intimate moments with their loved ones or with future partners, and they're able to create a safe container for themselves or hold boundaries when those boundaries are starting to get pushed. What you shared is accurate, but there's also, I wanted to make sure that I was clear that there's lots of different ways that trauma can show up, and there's lots of different ways that you can go into a experience with a skilled practitioner. And I say skilled practitioner because it's very important, because not every person who does this work is going to, at least in my opinion, and just from the experience that I've had with clients who have gone to others, will not always be showing up for the client. A lot of times there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of self desire that a practitioner might bring in. And just like not every doctor or every police officer is going to be great at their job. The same can be for any form of life, relationship, sex, intimacy coach. So it's really important that you, as talking to listeners who are interested in this work, that you take stock and know that there's a lot of options out there. And it's important to feel really connected and safe with the practitioner that you're sitting with. So I know I went off a little bit of a tangent, but
Hey,
just want to
that
make
is
sure that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thank you for that. So, in terms of just backing up a moment, talking about the different kinds and flavors that trauma might have and how you work with it is really, I appreciate that. And then, just really for the listeners, for people who are considering working with someone, I think it's really an important distinction to have people really check into feeling doing their homework as to like who this person is and what kind of results they might have gotten. And then there's all this stuff, they might look great on paper, But then, as you mentioned, it's like, does this person feel right? Is this person the right
Hmm.
person for me?
Yeah.
So, and then I'm really curious, what are you working on these days? How are you working these days?
Yeah. Well, I still doing this work, my sacred intimate work, and I have a website. I have people who will book time with me and will do discovery calls to chat more about what's coming up for them and how I might be able to partner with them. Again, the work is together. It's not just me. There's work that we do together. And I'm still very much like interested in finding ways to help people in whatever facet that might be coming up for them. So people can find me on the website that I've got, and then if there's questions that they have, we can talk about them and go from there.
Beautiful. And we'll put that all in the show notes. I do know that you have been working on ethical non-monogamy and have a program that you just launched. Is that
Yeah, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so my partner and we've been in an open relationship for a little over 8 years. And through our own relationship, through our own education, through the connections that we've made all around the world, we've developed this, I'm really proud of it, this really beautiful course on how to navigate consensual non-monogamous open relationships. The course is called Open to More, and it's really the brainchild of both of us. And similar to the sacred intimate work I do, which I kind of came into because I was having experiences with people and they were telling me how impactful it was and that I should do this for a living. The same for this course. We were connecting with people and they were learning so much by the relationship that Susanna, my partner, and I had and have and share. And that's because in this course, we go into the tough conversations, we go into the tough moments. It's not all about like, oh, you follow these steps and you're going to have a successful relationship. It's you can follow all of these steps and you still will run into roadblocks and challenges. So we really dive deep into some tough subjects, but we received a lot of really positive feedback around the course. Highly recommend it for anyone, even if you've had 20 years of experience in open relationships. There's something that you can learn because I'm constantly a work in progress and I'm constantly learning. So, yeah, definitely sign up for that course if you're interested in consensual non monogamy.
I love that. You can do everything right and still stuff comes up.
Oh, yeah.
So good. So our conversation has gone in all sorts of awesome places. And if you were to say to somebody who's listening, if they just tuned in and you wanted to make sure that they got one thing out of this conversation, what might that be?
That you have a voice and you are powerful and you can curate and create the intimate life that you desire, that it doesn't take another person to give that to you, that you can be the one to steward that ship. So I'd say in those moments of feeling like you're feeling lost or feeling stuck, that you really do have all the tools necessary to be able to create the intimate life that you want. And when you run into roadblocks, there are professionals out there like myself, like Deborah, who can help guide you on a path for you to continue down it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. I am always delighted to talk to you
Mm,
and to learn more about this incredible work and this incredible man and his partner. Please check the show notes below. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to slow down and invest some time and energy in learning how to be a better lover. So if you like this show, please like, subscribe, comment, Apple Podcasts, and or share with a friend who this information might support. And on that note, I just want to say thank you so much. This is Deborah Cat of the Better Sex Podcast.